Well, it's lovely to meet everyone. Yeah, thanks for joining us here. Jayana asked me to talk about the Edward Jenner programme, which I have completed last year. So this is just a little introduction, and where you see the underline there, that's actually a link to the website. So if you get the slides later and want to look at it, otherwise you can just Google that Programmes Leadership Academy, and it should take you to the right page. So thank you, Joanna. We'll have the next slide. So firstly, what is it? So this is one of 5 leadership programs that has been developed, I think, by the NHS with a whole series of other speakers involved. They're named after different historic medical advancements. So the first one is called Edward Jenner. Then there's Mary Seacole, Rosalind Franklin, Elizabeth Garrett Anderson, and Niall Bevan, and they build on each other. So you need to start with this Edward Jenner course. In the Edward Jenner course, it's divided into 2 different levels. So yeah, so it's a whole progressive way of studying leadership. I've done the first part of those 2 parts, and I'll go on to explain about that. Importantly, it's free if you work for the NHS. It is self-study and it's based online, so you can take it at your own pace. They do advise that it is 5 hours a week of study, and you can see there I've put level 1. That is, they say, is 9 weeks and then a 4-week assessment. And then the level 2, which is the bit that I haven't moved on to yet, that's 9 weeks again. So you can see it's quite a commitment. In some places you're allowed to take some work time to do that, but that would obviously need to be approved by your manager. I wasn't allowed to take any work time, so I did it all in my own time. So you just have to make sure that that's clear before you start, because as you can see, it is quite a commitment. It is generic. It's a really good course. When I say generic, it means it's not based on any speciality, but it also is accessible to all grades. So, you're doing your work as a therapy assistant and doing this little bit of study, and then you've got consultants who are also doing their work, or academics who are also doing the same study course. So it's very universal in terms of who can actually take part in it. I've put there it's assessed by peers, so there's opportunity to interact with all these different people. It's very much using the kind of modern tech systems of making comments and following people who you like. You kind of want to follow, sort of thing. And towards the end, the assessment is partly assessed by peers, and then you also have to assess other people's, and then right at the end there's a more formal assessment done by outsiders. I took this from the information. It just says it can be credited by the Chartered Management Institute. To be honest, I don't really know what that means, but it was on there. So if you need it to go to something bigger, apparently you can do. So can I have the next slide, please, Joanna? Thank you. So what is in it? So the level 1, as I said, was the bit that I did. And they divide it then again into 2 modules. So the first module they call Exploring What Leadership Means to Me, and that's 4 weeks of study. In that is very much talking about it, looking at yourself. So a lot of it is kind of self-awareness, self kind of understanding. So it's talking, I'll just read through a couple of the topics that you cover. So choices and decisions, the way that you view issues and how other people view you, and then workplace culture, resilience, internal and external expectations. There was some really good solid stuff, and in the next slide I'll explain how it's laid out and everything, but really interesting different topics there. And then module 2 was leading through relationships, and that was a 5-week section, and that was very much looking at how we relate to people in the NHS. So there's not so much of that kind of, well, in many ways there is hierarchical leadership, but in other ways there isn't. So yeah, looking at things like a ladder of inference, how we understand things, circles of influence, so the things that we can influence and the things that we can't influence. Simple things like giving feedback, or more tangible things like giving people feedback, styles of influencing. Yeah, so a whole range of different reasons and way that we relate to others in leadership. And then the third part of it is the assessment. And to be honest, once I had got through those first 2 sections, it was just like, I'm going to do this assessment. I've got through so much material, I've got to finish. And the assessment was 4 weeks, and that's very practical. So you have to use some examples from your daily work and apply the principles that you've learned over the other 2 modules, and write a short piece, and then the next week they kind of build on that and build on that and build on that, so that the last piece is slightly more longer, the 4th piece, but they kind of introduce you to it gradually, so it doesn't feel like a huge issue to sort through. But I did feel that I needed to write notes from the beginning, so that I could look back on it and kind of work out, yeah, have something to refer to. So that's the level I've done, and I haven't done level 2. So that's what it says about it: leading in and beyond my team, 5 weeks, and module 4, the leader as a manager. I can't comment on the content of those because I haven't done that. So yeah, if you can move on, Diana, please. And then how is it presented? So it's really engaging. I just to say I couldn't put it down is not too much of a exaggeration. You kind of you get one little topic, and then I've put it's intense and thought-provoking. So you get that one little topic, you think about it, you have to analyze what yourself. You develop your own self-awareness, and then you kind of mull that over for a bit, and then it's like, oh, what's the next one? So I found it really, yeah, really good. There are a variety of approaches that are taken. So there's a kind of drama that has a thread that they build on through all the different weeks. There's also little video presentations by a speaker. There's a little bit of reading to do, but not extensive. There are diagrams to explain the different concepts. So it's a really good kind of blend of theory, but also very practical as well. And in most sections, there's little questions that you have to think over and write your own notes on. And then you can interact with the kind of online platform, but I didn't really engage with that as much as I could have, but I did enjoy looking at other people's comments as to how they've found the different situations. So it did really kind of pull you through the whole thing. I did find it fascinating. Yeah, and I've put there a balance of theory and practical scenarios. So it wasn't, kind of totally academic. But it was quite intense, personally, when you're thinking about how you react and yeah, how you are part of this bigger organization. So yeah, I couldn't fault it for the presentation and the way it was written. Next slide, please, Joanna. And then the big question is, why do it? um, my main reason to do it was because I suppose it had been brought to my attention. There were other people in the team who were planning on doing it. And to be honest, it was just very interesting. There is a little, I haven't put this on any of the slides, but there is a little, they call it level 0. Sorry, slight banging. I'm in a store cupboard. There is a level 0 which you can do, which is just 2 weeks with a couple of hours, and that gives you another introduction into the whole thing. So it basically just pulled me in. It had my attention. It was relevant, engaging. And then as time went through, I realized that it really increased my confidence in my role, and there were practical things to apply on a daily basis. And then the but comes. So the but is it was very time consuming. So what appears to be a 3-month course, me took 8 months. So that's the big but. Thanks, Johanna. Could you move us on? And then I suppose it's just, does anyone want to ask any questions? I've put a couple of quotes there, which are just on the main website for the course. But yeah, do fire away with your question.
When you say it took you 8 months, is there a time limit to it? Have you got to do it in a certain time?
No, not that I became aware of. That's a good question. I'm sorry, I didn't put that in the whole summary thing. I'm not aware that there is a kind of like, you have to get this done and you'll get pushed off if you don't, sort of thing. As far as I know, it may be, yeah, it may be worth checking in case you really think this is going to take you a long time. But to be honest, I just found I wanted to, you know, I factored in a bit of extra time in my week, and I found it interesting enough that I didn't want to take it too slowly, if you know what I mean. It just kept wanting me to, I just kept wanting to do a bit more. It's the assessments at the end that you have to kind of force yourself through, but once you've done the rest of it, it seems worth it.
Thank you.
Does any other people got any question? Geraldine.
Morning, fantastic presentation, Rachel, really interesting. I think you did briefly touch on it, but I'm just kind of really curious to see what has been the biggest impact in kind of your day-to-day kind of change in practice, what you've taken from the learning that you feel has really influenced how you're working.
Yeah, the thing that I found the most interesting, I'll just have to get the right terminology here, I think was one of the things was called styles of influencing. So they talk about how you influence by kind of relationships and yeah, just the way that I interacted with others, and the fact that we do all have something something to contribute, even if you're a very small fish in a big pond like I am, sort of thing. So yeah, so it just gave me that extra confidence to speak up in a bit more in a you know, the MDT meeting where we've got the consultant and the nurses and all, you know, physio, OT, speech therapy. It was just like, okay, we can all do something here. We can all say our little bit, and I've seen something that maybe someone else hadn't seen at a different time. So yeah, I did find it really helped, particularly with confidence.
That's brilliant. I absolutely love that. And I think the key thing for me that you've really highlighted there is I think it's easy to get into this kind of understanding that you can't be in a leadership position unless your job title is leader, and that actually isn't the case. Like, we all have the power to kind of lead and influence and shape, and it's absolutely fundamental in things like facilitating like that team culture and really supporting that kind of patient care and that patient safety. And you're completely right, like you would have seen things that other people haven't seen. So I just think it's really important that even if you don't think you're in a leadership role or you don't think you've got that potential, actually it's really key, and we need leaders and that leadership behaviour everywhere. So it's just to really highlight shifting that perspective, that it's only those that are in managers that lead and that can shape and that can change. I've done bits of this programme as well, Rachel, but did not finish it, so you've done much better than me. But actually I think there's a lot to kind of take away, and would really encourage people to develop that kind of pillar of their practice, because I think there's a lot that our support workforce can bring. And like you said, it's just that confidence building to step up into those roles, because you're already doing the work and have the knowledge. So it's just facilitating that a little bit, but absolutely fantastic.
I think what I'd like to add on to that, it's not only in the clinical, obviously a lot of us in the therapy assistant kind of role end up doing a little bit of the kind of support in the admin type of things as well. I think it really helped me in that side. It's like, okay, this is a job that someone's got to do sometime, somewhere, and I can do that. That's fine. Make a spreadsheet to record whatever someone is needing to record or whatever, and just gives you that extra bit of confidence to say, yeah, that's fine. I can do that.
Thank you very much. I'm just conscious of time, so we're going to move on. But if everybody got another question, please use the chat and write your question, and we will reply to you after. Isha, I will let you do your presentation. Over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Isha. I'm now a specialist dietitian over at Wickham Hospital within Buckinghamshire. So I'm just going to talk to you today about sort of my journey to becoming a registered dietitian from a support worker. So yeah, can I have the next slide, please? So this is a little bit about me. I'm married and I have a little fur baby called Cole. That's him with a little bow tie, looking like a little distinguished gentleman. I run 3 small businesses alongside working full time, so I have an extremely busy lifestyle. Those businesses include henna. So on the bottom left, I've started a new business, which is a grazing board. And one picture I didn't put on there was I bake cakes as well. So very busy. Before I went into dietetics, I used to work in banking. So I worked in banking from the day I started at university up until 2023. So I've always kind of had a hand in banking. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. It started off as a Saturday job and I stayed there because I was comfortable. I started working for Bucks Healthcare Trust in 2022, so just after COVID. I came in as a dietetic support worker and it was just amazing. And I've now been a registered dietitian for almost a year and I've managed to specialize quite quickly. So that's a bit about me. Next slide, please. So just a quick overview kind of what we're going to talk about, what I'm going to cover today. So a little bit about the course, what a semi-apprenticeship might look like, which is kind of the route I took. That's probably what I named it. So yeah, that's a little bit about that. Just the importance of sort of apprenticeships in the AHP workforce, because they are becoming a lot more common now. The structure of my program and the apprenticeship, partner institutions and workplaces, benefits for students, and then the application process. So the semi-apprenticeship route. So my university had 2 routes. It had one course, but it was 2 separate routes. So you had a paid route and you had an apprenticeship route. And at the end of both of those, you would receive a master's degree. So I think it was a level 7. So it was the same course and everything. It was just delivered exactly the same. The only difference was the cost. So the same structure and everything. You still had the placements. You still had all of the other coursework that you had to complete. For me, it was, I would be a paid student, so they would take me on as if I'm kind of not working and I would pay for my course. Whereas the apprenticeships were hired, or sort of they were working within a trust as a support worker, and their trust would support them in gaining this degree as an apprenticeship route. So they'd be paid. They'd have a few different things that they needed to do, like meet with mentors and meet with sort of a placement or an apprenticeship kind of course leader. I think monthly or weekly just to get things signed off, whereas I didn't have to do any of that. My employers supported me. So the reason why I call it a semi-apprenticeship route is because my employers did support me in keeping me on as bank staff whilst I was doing my degree. So I still had a salary, I still had a wage, and I was basically doing the same thing as an apprenticeship would. And the difference as well was I was able to complete my placements in my own trust, as were the apprentices. So they would do their placements in different departments or different kind of specialties within their trust, but they could still stay within. If I didn't do this way, I would have to do my placements in the Midlands, which is where my university was. Can we have the next slide, please? So the importance of apprenticeships in dietetic or the AHP workforce, I think the biggest thing for the dietetic specialties, we're very small kind of specialty, so it's more funding for our specialty. It's just bringing that kind of focus a bit more onto dietetics and sort of giving us a bit more push, I guess. It enables kind of staff to pursue higher education. So a lot of support workers that I worked with in the course had been support workers for a very, very long time. So it just gave them a bit more of a push to kind of get qualified and really progress in their career. Bigger dietetic presence, as I mentioned, we're quite a small specialty, so there's not very many of us. So it's nice that we have a bit more of a workforce now. And then just more opportunities. So, you know, when you kind of transition from a support worker into a qualified health professional, you get to work with a lot more sort of MDT, other projects outside of the NHS as well. I think it helps being a registered healthcare professional because you get to do a bit more. So yeah, that's why I would say it's important. Next slide, please. So the structure of our program, this is exactly the same for the paid route and the apprenticeship. So year one was basically just the foundations. And my particular course, so I studied with Coventry University, and it was a blended learning course, which meant all of our lectures and seminars and everything were online on Teams, and they were kind of staggered a few days in the week. So I think semester one was like 2 days a week, and then semester two was 3 days a week, and it kind of worked like that. We had 3 placements. So we had A, B, and C. For A placement, we were on campus for a couple of days, and then we had to choose a workplace to do a leadership placement for. Placement B, we had 2 weeks on campus and then 10 weeks in an NHS trust, community or acute, and that was all in year one. And then year two was more kind of going on to your dissertation and then your consolidating placement, which is placement C. And then that was a 12-week placement, again, either within your trust or in a different trust. And we also did a leadership module, which was non-dietetic. That was really, really good because we got a chartered management qualification at the end of that as well. So it does help if you're kind of if you wanted to go into leadership roles quite quickly after qualifying, you kind of already have that kind of leadership baseline for when you do leadership courses within the NHS. And then we had to do our dissertation as well in the final year, which was in the form of a service improvement project. So that was quite good. The difference between the apprenticeship and the paid route was the apprentices had a lot more admin to do. So they had to do weekly logs of how many hours they've worked, what they've done for university. It was basically like a continuous portfolio of their kind of work to show what they've been doing. Whereas with the paid route, we were just considered as like kind of paid students. So as you would do in your undergrad, you're not kind of keeping a note of what hours you're working during the day, what paperwork you're doing, what coursework you're doing. It's just you do your work, you submit it, and then you're kind of free to go about your day. But obviously, because I was still working, I was doing all of that kind of stuff as well. Can I have the next slide, please? So partner institutions and workplaces. So Coventry University is the university that I chose, and they work with the West Midlands hospitals to provide placements. There is no set workplaces. So if I was going to go down the apprenticeship route, I could very well stay working within my trust and just, do the course online. And I wouldn't have to sort of travel to Coventry only if I was going to go on campus days. Every university that offers apprenticeships, you can work in your current workplace, but you're just supported by that university to get your degree. So the Trust education leads can help with choosing apprenticeships and advising on sort of financial availability and staffing in your department. But the universities all over the UK offer apprenticeships at different times in the year. So some start sort of towards the start of the year, and some start mid, and some start towards the end. And then you've got mentors and supervisors, which provide support every quarter during the sort of 2-year course. Those mentors and supervisors kind of are combined. So you've got university mentors and supervisors. You're always assigned one from university, and then you would have one at your workplace as well if you're doing the apprenticeship. And they're usually allocated by your workplace or the university. Can I have the next slide, please? So benefits for students, I found it really beneficial, and a lot of my colleagues did as well, because it was a good learning style. It combines distance learning with in-person learning. A lot of the students on my cohort were working mums, and they had families and they had very busy lifestyles. So this kind of worked out for them, because our university sort of learning days were 9 to 5. So it kind of fit in around our working hours. We had a lot of university support. Our mentors and supervisors from the university were amazing. They contacted us sort of every quarter, and then we had the chance to meet with them every few weeks if we needed it, or even more. And workplace, just from my own experience, I had a really supportive department. So they supported me with sort of learning. They helped me with certain coursework. They helped me with my dissertation. So it was a really good experience. Practice-based placements really do help with sort of learning and building on new skills. It is quite a jump, I found, from being a support worker to now being a registered dietitian. There's a lot more responsibility and a lot more things that you have to kind of learn and do. So it was really good to be able to do that in somewhere that I was used to, and learning with sort of people that I already kind of knew, and just building that confidence within a workplace that I already know. And the placements really do help you get ready for work as a band 5 almost immediately. So at your C placement, you're working at a band 5 level by the time you get to the last sort of 4 to 6 weeks of your placement. I found the sort of networking opportunities really good, because I've made friends who work all over the UK, and you just get to know loads of people. So, if you ever wanted to move out of the area, or if you wanted to find jobs in different trusts or different kind of specialties, you kind of have that networking opportunity there. And also, if you are going on placements that are outside of your trust, it's really good, because you get to learn, you get to sort of work in a different hospital, you get to know other dietitians or other AHPs, so you've got a potential of finding a job pretty much straight away. One thing I will say with the apprenticeship is, I think depending on the trust, you're not always guaranteed a band 5 job once you finish. And I think that has to be made clear to you kind of before you start the apprenticeship, whether it is going to end up with a band 5 job, or whether you're kind of going to be kept on as a band 4 until there is a band 5 available, or you have to apply for it as anybody else would have to. But you can start as a band 4 after finishing your placements. So if you did get a band 5 job, maybe at the end of your placements, because it is towards the end of your second year, you could be taken on as band 4 and then transition to a band 5 once you get your HCPC registration. And one thing I really found interesting was I covered a huge range of areas in my placements. So I covered peds, I covered every single speciality, so oncology, hematology, all sorts of different things, stroke, surgery, medical, ICU, all that kind of stuff. So you really do get to have an overview of every single kind of specialty within your AHP area, and it's really good because it helps you to kind of figure out exactly what you might want to specialize in and what you might enjoy doing. So it's really nice to have that kind of cover. Can I have the next slide, please? And then application process. I might have touched on this just a bit earlier, but the paid route, which is what I did. So I applied on the university website. So you don't need to do it through UCAS, which you would do, I think, with undergrad courses. There was just an application form which I filled out and sent in. The usual entry requirements would be a relevant undergrad degree with a minimum of a 2-1 grade and experience in the field that you want to work in as either a volunteer or a clinical support worker. You can go straight in from an undergrad degree as well, but I think in the interview process, they do expect you to take on some volunteer experience before you start, just if you've never kind of been in a medical setting or a hospital setting before. And then you would have your interview, and then if you pass your interview, you get an offer. The interview was very informal. I think it was more just to kind of find out a bit about you as a person, and then just general kind of knowledge, I guess, about the area that you wanted to kind of do your degree in. So when I did my course, it was £9,000 a year, and I was eligible for an NHS Learning Support Grant. With that £9,000 a year, it is covered by student finance. So student finance will cover additional degrees if you're working within the AHP workforce, nursing and midwifery, and I think there's a few more. So you could just check if you are doing the paid route with what it kind of covers. The apprenticeship route, you can source it on the university website. But then the government website is really good because that has all the apprenticeships on them. So it's gov.uk and it's Find Apprenticeship. And it normally tells you what apprenticeships are available from what universities and what areas. The entry requirements are generally the same as a paid route. So the undergrad degree with a minimum grade and generally experience in the field of work. But if you're already working, you kind of have that. You would still have to attend an interview to get your offer, and then you're generally paid as salary when you are doing an apprenticeship. So for our course, for year 1, you were paid as a band 3, and when you go into year 2, you're paid as a band 4. That's just how I understood it. I think a lot of the apprentices that I worked with were already band 4, so they just stayed at a band 4 salary. Just another sort of point on the entry requirements. If you didn't have a relevant degree for the field that you worked in, you may have to do conversion courses. So for example, for dietetics, there was a prerequisite that you had to do biochemistry. So if you didn't have that in your undergrad degree, you would have to do that as a course before you started the degree in January. Next slide, please. This is just a quick Q&A if anybody had any questions about any of the process or anything else.
Yeah, I have a question, Isha.
Yep.
What was your sort of rough split between working and studying in terms of, yeah?
So every semester was different. I think on the first year we had a lot more contact days as such. So I think I had 2 study days in the first semester. Second semester I had technically 3 study days. Mm-hmm. And in the third semester it was placement, so I didn't work at all. Okay. And then in the second year I had 2.5 days for the first semester. Second semester was placement, so I didn't work at all. And then the final year I had 1 contact day, so I worked 4 days a week. But I think if you do an apprenticeship, they factor all of that in.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
That's okay. Any other questions? No. Okay, cool. Oh, we've got one.
Sorry, jumped in at the end. I was just curious to hear, I guess, what you felt the biggest challenge was, because obviously studying and working at the same time can be a lot. And yeah, what was the most difficult and what was the best part, I guess, of doing it that way?
So So we'll start with the most difficult. I think it was the coursework, having time to kind of do that in between working and studying and doing all of that. So I just had to be very organized. I think the most hard was probably the dissertation, because I was doing my service improvement project. It meant that I was having to juggle a caseload of patients as well as gathering data on the wards and doing all of my kind of analyzing and all that kind of stuff and writing up of my dissertation, because I had to do a lot of that during work time. So that was kind of the most difficult part of things. And the best part was I got to work with my trust. They were very, very supportive. I don't think I felt very stressed, to be fair. That's probably
really
the best
lovely.
part. Yeah, and I ended up with a band 5 job working within my team, which was really nice. And yeah, so I got to stay within the team, so that's fantastic.
Congratulations, really well
Thank
done.
you. Yeah, it was really good. Yeah, that was it really. Oh, any other questions? Okay, cool. And then I think my last slide was literally just a key point one. So it was just that workplaces do support apprenticeships. I think it might be a good idea if you are interested, speak to your education lead, speak to your management and see if they know anything about any apprenticeships that are going on. I think apprenticeships are fantastic. It just means that you don't have to leave your job to do an education and to get that sort of qualification under your belt. And it's really flexible, especially if you have a busy family life. So I'd highly recommend it. Available at so many different universities, so you don't have to travel far. They are mostly blended learning now for the master's courses. I think they are just easier. It's good. You get to keep your sort of work-life balance and you get to keep your job whilst learning. That was the biggest thing for me, and really great job prospects when you have completed your program. Some apprenticeships or some trusts will have that band 5 ready for you when you finish your degree, and some will keep you on as a band 4 until you find a band 5. So there's always a lot of support around it. But yeah, it's becoming really good. I think apprenticeships are fantastic. They're becoming a bit more common now, especially higher level apprenticeships. So if you've been like a support worker for a while and you've been toying with the idea of qualifying, I would do it. I would take the leap because it's probably the best thing that I did. Yeah. And that was it. So thank you guys so much for listening. If you have any other questions, please feel free to ask, or you can email me and I'm more than happy to have a chat with you.
So I just